Good evening, Ice Wolves fans, and welcome to another edition of Ice Wolves Insider. Well, we're really excited to start Season 3, and on tonight's program we'll be talking with a couple of Ice Wolves veterans, Smerek and Myles Hovdebo, as well as Ice Wolves fans Keith Kratchmer and Roger Schooley later on. Should be a great show. We'll see you right back. Welcome back to Ice Wolves Insider. At this point, we're going to be talking to a couple of Ice Wolves veterans. That'd be goaltender Myles Hovdebo and forward Smerek. Guys, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
All right. Well, it's good to see you guys. And obviously, we're into a few games already into the season. Maybe just talk about what it's like being kind of one of the only holdovers from the last championship team here in La Ronge, and coming to a season where there's quite a few new faces. I'll start with you there, Graham.
It's important for us to play a huge role in the team this year. It's our third year with the squad, and there's a lot of fresh faces, and it's important for us to lead them. And so they learn how to win, and we become successful.
Yeah. Myles, obviously you're one of the 20s on this team as well. Have you got comfortable kind of embracing that leadership role in the squad yet?
Yeah, actually, I knew coming in that I was going to be one of the head guys for the vets, so it was just something that you got to do. So you have to go up to the players and act like you're older than them, and you want to show them how to win, and you want to show them what it takes to win. So that's like being in the gym every day, working hard in practice, being vocal in the room, that kind of stuff, just so they're comfortable with you and with the team, and they know what you got to do.
Yeah. Now, of course, not all the new faces are, fresh-faced rookies. Like not all, 17 or 18-year-olds. You have some guys that have played Junior A elsewhere, guys like Spencer Brennan and so forth, some Junior B players from last year as well. What's that been like? Has that made it easier to have guys with, that have played some hockey at this level elsewhere?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we had, Spencer Brennan's been a huge pickup for us, definitely in the dressing room for sure. We have a couple other guys that maybe came from Junior B who are rookies that have stepped into leadership roles, even though they're from Junior B, and it's easier on us and makes it easier on the 20-year-olds. So.
Yeah. Now, a couple of tough losses. Guys that were with the club even 2 years ago during the last championship season for the Wolves. Talking about Skylar Ledoux and Alex Van Demiel. Could have been back this year as 20-year-olds, both elected to retire from hockey to pursue other things. How tough was that, learning that those two guys would not be back? I'll start with you there, Myles.
It's a huge loss for us. Like having those two guys, Skylar being one of our main guys last year, and Vanner being one of our head defensemen. Those are two big losses that we probably could have benefited hugely from, just because of their experience and being with us through all the playoffs and stuff in our first year. So, like our D zone, we're working on it pretty good. Having Vanner there, it would have helped a lot with his experience, and Skylar as well, being the big force that he is up front.
Yeah, and Graham, of course, you've played with Skylar on the same line, I think, for 2 years running there. That must be a tough blow for yourself on a personal level as well as on the team level.
Oh yeah, both Skylar and Vanner were very close with me. They were good buddies of mine, and we definitely miss those two. I don't have any disrespect or anything bad to say to them. I mean, you got to start your life sometime, and they decided to choose this year. Although it's a big loss for us, I wish them all the best.
Yeah, well said. All right, so at the start of the year, Bob was indicating that, it might be almost like an extended training camp. I'm not sure if he said it that way, but he was going to give a lot of the new guys a chance at the power play, shorthanded situations. I'm not sure if that's still happening or not, but maybe talk about how that's been, seeing, all kinds of roster changeover from game to game and guys in different positions. Has that been tough in terms of trying to establish, line combinations, chemistry with teammates? I'll start with you there, Myles.
It is and it isn't. Like, you need to give the rookies that chance to be comfortable playing in the league, and just giving them the chance to play on the power play or the penalty kill just makes them that more comfortable with playing with us and on the team. So I don't find it that hard to come into the game with having those people playing. Like, I just got to go out there and stop the puck, so it doesn't really matter to me who's on the ice.
I was just thinking that was probably a stupid question to ask you, Myles, but Graham, you've been on a couple lines already so far this season. What's it been like that?
It's been, it's been up and down. I know how it feels to be an 18-year-old rookie in this league, and you're nervous. You see these guys, these 20-year-old guys who are more focused on themselves and their friends, and you feel kind of alone. And having the rookies play in certain roles, special roles, penalty kill, power play, makes them feel a little more comfortable, and that's what we're looking for. We want guys to be comfortable on the team, comfortable being in the room, and comfortable playing on the ice.
Yeah. Who among the first year players, and I'm talking about the actual true rookies, if you will, have impressed you the most so far this year? I realize it's in the early going, and you haven't really got a complete read on them, but I'll start with you there, Myles. Is there any one or two guys that have stood out for you that said, hey, this guy's actually going to be pretty good at this level?
Yeah, actually, Braden Alexin, he's really impressed me, being a 16-year-old and coming in, and he doesn't really look out of place at all. He's keeping up with the pace, and he's willing to take a beating, as he did in one of our exhibition games against Nipawin. He fought one of their 20-year-olds, so he's really impressed me. Same with Owen Leclerc. He's really coming into his own, coming out there, being a force up front.
Yeah, and he's a 17-year-old too, so these are both guys that are, I guess, underage, if you will. Graham, who's stood up for you?
I got a few guys that stood up for me. Brett Norman, being 5'6" and 150 pounds, got the biggest heart on the team. He works so hard out there, and he's been really effective for us. And Mitchell Hewson, 19-year-old defenseman from BC. I can't say enough about the guy's leadership. Even though he's a rookie, and even though he's not a 20-year-old or anything or a letter, he's shown a lot of leadership towards the rookies and towards us, and I've learned a lot from him.
Good stuff. All right, let's talk about the season so far. Obviously, you guys are still a couple games below 500 to start the year. But let's talk about some of the losses. I hate to dwell on them, but there have been quite a few one-goal losses, and that's got to be tough, on any team. And knowing that you guys were so close, and just a couple of bounces there, you guys are maybe have a winning record. So, what's that been like? Rebounding from those one-goal losses, particularly the ones where unfortunately you guys ended up surrendering a big lead. I'll start with you there, Myles.
It does take a blow to your confidence a little bit, but you got to take it in stride, and you got to learn from those losses. You can't really dwell on them. Just got to put them behind you and focus on the things that you did good in the game and fix the things you did wrong. So you just got to take it one day at a time, take it in stride, take it off the chain, and go forward with it.
You can't look too much into it. We're still a young team, but you want to learn from them. You don't just ignore them, but you have to learn from them. But you can't dwell on them as well. I mean, if you start getting a negative in the room, a loss is a loss. No matter if it's 1 goal or 7 goals, and if you're losing, you got to make sure you're staying positive and worry about that next one, or you start stringing losses together, and it'll be a frustrating season.
Yeah, and it's great that you brought that up, because I've been curious, wanting to know, and unfortunately we couldn't have him tonight, but wanting to know how Bob, head coach, has been handling your group of players, the team this year, knowing that there's a lot of new faces, a lot of young guys. What's he been? I guess I hate to use the word preaching, but what's he been saying? After some of these losses, what are some of the things that he wants the team to perhaps work on and do a little bit differently? I'll start with you there, Myles.
He wants us to be a little bit more urgent. We're going out and we're playing hard, but we're not playing smart. We're not winning those puck battles. We're not getting first to pucks. We're just not moving our feet as much as we should. But that those are minor things, and those are just small details that we've got to start working on. And if we start doing that, we'll win a lot more games.
Yeah. Graham, is there anything else that you want to share in terms of what the coaching staff has been saying to the players?
I think the biggest thing is focusing. We've had 4-1 leads, we've blown 4-1 leads, and the biggest thing is focus. You got to be focused every period, every shift. You got to go out and do your job. So, we get a 4-1 lead, you get a bit complacent, and then it's amazing how fast goals can go in. So he's been saying, you got to stay focused, whether it's a practice or a game, and do your job.
Interesting. All right, well, let's talk about the last game. And as we speak, that was the Battle for the North Stars game. Huge win. Yeah. Obviously, you guys were We're really hoping for a win. You get it over a conference rival and kind of a historic rival of the Ice Wolves. So that must have felt good. Maybe just talk about the keys to victory in that game. We'll start with you there, Myles.
It was a great win. It felt good coming off of a 4-game losing skid there. Just we all worked hard pretty much the whole game. Unfortunately, we got outshot, but we got pucks in net and we got people driving the net, and that's what we had to do. So the pucks went in for us, and we came out with the win.
Yeah. Graham, what's your assessment of what was the difference that night?
Well, the biggest thing was Myles and Ned had 55 saves, but we started doing little things like we and Myles have been talking about for the last 5 minutes. Chipping pucks, getting zones, little things that make the world a difference. And we did have a lead going into the third, and we made sure we focused on getting the job done for the next 20 because we know we've given away a few. So it was really nice to have a lead, hold it, and get the victory.
Yeah. All right, I'm just going to kind of focus on your individual goals for this season. I'll start with you, Myles. Obviously, now have the chance to be the undisputed number one goaltender on this team. I think you've basically played almost every minute in net, except for maybe a couple of games where Kyle got a little bit of action there. But what's that been like to have all that time in net, and for Bob to put that kind of faith in you?
It feels good. I've been waiting for this for the last couple of years, and I finally getting it. So I'm taking the bull by the horns and I'm running with it. So right now I'm at the top of my game, and I really don't want to drop off at all. So I'm working as hard as I can to stay on that train, and I'm gonna try and do whatever I can to help my team out and take them as far as I can.
Yeah. And Graham, you find yourself now on the top line, I believe, with Nathan recently, so as of the last game, and huge honor getting the captaincy. Maybe talk about that, getting the C.
It's a great honor. I mean, to be recognized as a leader on this team is huge, and I gotta do my job now. Getting that C is great, but it's also a lot of responsibility. You got to make sure guys are ready to go every game, and you got to make sure you're leading the team positively. So I'm pleased, but I got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Speaking of leading the team, I was doing some research on some of your stats there, and did you know that you lead the team in penalty minutes and in fighting wagers as well? Like, is that part of your role as well this year? You're going to be the team's enforcer?
I'm not much of a fighter, but I like to stand up for my teammates, and it's what I believe. I don't care if you're 5'6" or 6'4". If you hit somebody on my team, which I feel is dirty, and I'm going to stand up for whoever it is. And I think that's a huge part of hockey. And to know going in the corner that a teammate's got your back is a huge.
Yeah, actually on that, I did want to ask you. Of course, the fighting rules have changed yet again for this year, and there's like even less that the players can do that. Are you finding that it's gotten so far that way that the guys are wondering, well, do I really jump in at this stage? And like guys are hesitating in places where they normally just immediately step up to defend a teammate. Is that on guys' minds at all, or do they not even worry about that?
Oh, absolutely. The fighting rule is absolutely ridiculous. We have guys going in the corner, and they know they won't have to fight anyone and then they'll just spear someone or hit them with their stick. I think it's absolutely outrageous when a small guy who's trying to stir the pot realizes that he's not going to get jumped. Well, why wouldn't he? How could you blame the guy?
Yeah.
But if you don't have this fighting rule in, he's not going to do that because he knows he's going to have to step up to the plate, whether he likes it or not. So I think the fighting rule is going to actually hurt more people than it's going to save.
Interesting. All right, well, Myles, Graham, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
All right, if you're just joining us, this is Ice Wolves Insider, and we'll be right back with From the Stands. Welcome back to Ice Wolves Insider. At this stage of the program, we are going to be chatting with a couple of fans in our From the Stand segment. And joining us this evening are Keith Crashford and Roger Schooley. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks, Kelly.
Well, it's good to have you on the show. Of course, this is the first episode, so really our first chance to talk about this year's edition of the Ice Wolves. I trust you guys have seen a few games so far. Maybe just give us your first impressions of this new outfit. I'll start with you there, Roger.
Inconsistent.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think there's lots of potential there, and I think that when we chip the puck in and forecheck, not many teams can handle our speed. We're very quick, but tend to run around a bit in our own zone, so that kind of causes a few problems. But it's still entertaining. It's fun to watch. They're never seem to be out of any game.
Yeah.
So that'd be my first impression.
You think it's a confidence issue? I think back to the Battleford's game, and things it looked a little dire, and then they went up 1-0, and it seemed like a switch went on, that there was a little bit more of a team that we could maybe hope to see this season.
Well, maybe a little bit of that. I think a lot of it is it's a pretty young team, a lot of inexperience. You see a lot of play on the offensive side of the puck rather than the defensive side of the puck, which causes turnovers and opportunities the other way. But I think once they get used to the system that Bob's and Ronnie are trying to implement, and push the play rather than try to pull the play, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. Keith, what are your first impressions of this?
Well, I'd agree with that as well. The first periods always seem to be very slow for us, and then they tend to get a lot of shots on us. The second periods we tend to get better, and then the third period, sometimes we're good and sometimes we fall back to the first period. So it's that inconsistency as well. And we have been outshot a lot in most of the games, and until we can keep our forward momentum, I think that's going to be a problem. I don't know if it's because of the new, a lot of the new players obviously, and young defensemen, young defense as well. But Myles has certainly been keeping us in a lot of those games. He's been making some spectacular saves. The other night against Battleford, or the Battleford Stars, he was just unbelievable. So if as long as our goaltending keeps us in, I think we'll be okay until we start gelling and learning how to get do the things that we're supposed to. So
yeah. For first year players, are there any guys that particularly stand out for you? Guys that have really impressed you in the early going? I'll start with you there, Roger.
Well, that's pretty hard not to like Brayden Alexan. He looks really good out there. I'm struggling for first names, but the Houston fella on defense.
Mitchell Houston, yeah.
Mitchell, that's it. Yeah, I like him. Not a first year player in junior A, but first year here, Spencer Brennan has really impressed me. Watched him a bit at the preseason. I didn't know how physical he'd be for a big guy, but he certainly brings it in the regular season. He plays well and smart. Seems to be a smart player.
Yeah, 6'6" and can skate. There's nothing wrong with
nothing
wrong with that.
About, yeah.
For sure.
I think Berube has impressed me as well. He looks good. Again, I'm not familiar with the problem with when I go to a game, I watch the game, so I don't really watch individuals. I just see, well, they just about scored on us, so I don't know whose fault that was or anything. But certainly Brennan, and a lot of the Houston as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of getting some experience and playing together. I think they'll improve. I think they got the potential for it anyway.
Beauregard's been pretty impressive in the circle and the face-off dot there, and pretty solid two-way player as well. So, yes, a lot of people would vote for him as well. What about returning players in terms of guys that you feel have really taken a step up from what we saw last year from them? Is there anybody that stands out for you? Start with you.
I think Nathan Boyer. I think he's just a spark plug of that team. He's every time he's on the ice, he's everywhere. If it's forechecking or back or playing forward or back checking or in the physical part of it as well. He just does everything. I'm really impressed with him this year. Reese Dino, doing very well, very good skater, a very good playmaker too. So I'm impressed with those two especially.
Yeah, as we speak, tied for the league in scoring. So that first line's really having a banner campaign. Roger, who among the returning players impresses you?
Well, I think like Keith said, Dino and Boyer especially maybe seen two of the prettiest goals to come yet this year from those two. Brandon Ritchie's playing well in defense. Brett Hope, I still think sky's the limit for that guy. He's pretty talented, and when he gets it all put together, I think he's going to be a real force in this league. Maybe top one or two guy in the league. Graham Smerek, what can you say about him? All heart.
Yeah.
But there's so many guys that are,
Yeah.
that are bringing it for 20-year-olds. They know it's their swan song, and I don't think there's a lack of leadership on this team. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you don't want to leave anybody out, but of
Yeah,
course we've talked about Myles already.
Miles,
yeah.
Miles, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk about some league happenings. Of course, Roger, you're the team's representative on the board of governors, and among other things, there's a lot of things we could talk about. But on this evening's program, we'll talk about the Junior A supplement. It got extended, so I guess that's good news from the league's point of view in terms of this pilot project that you guys or the league want to see extended. Part of that, though, also Hockey Canada with that decided to further reduce. I guess the limit that players can fight in a given year, and we were talking to Graham earlier in the year, and he thinks the rule is ridiculous. I've heard that from other fans as well as some other players, and I guess my question for you is this more of a Hockey Canada initiative, or is it truly something that the SJHL wanted to see?
It's a Hockey Canada issue.
Okay.
We want to leave 2 fights in. We don't want to see, and when I say we, I mean the 4 Western partners,
right.
Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, and actually Maritime League as well is part of the supplement.
Right.
We feel that the threat of retribution is sometimes more dangerous or more hits home more with the players than getting the penalty. So if we feel that if you're gonna start something early in the game, get in a fight and get kicked out, and it's done, well, there's really no. If you've done your job and taken one of their best players off, there's no retribution. But if you got to come back and play in that game, so we feel real strongly about the 2-fight rule.
Yeah.
The reduction in games, or a number of fights you can have before suspensions pile up. That was kind of out of our hands. We had to apply for the supplement and had to try to prove that we should be leaving the fights in order to get it. So I think we did that successfully. Fighting was actually down in the 4 Western leagues over the first part of the supplement, and so was majors in high sticking and roughing. So I think the fear of retribution sometimes is more of a deterrent than the actual penalties, and that's the way we like it. We'd like to see that number of games expanded, but it's really out of our hands.
Now, that was the next thing I was going to ask you: is it truly out of the league's hands, or if it gets to the point where fans, if it's like this is not my grandfather's SJHL, I'm not going to go to the games anymore, or I'm just not. There's a lot of SJHL fans that prefer the tough hockey. It's not that they necessarily want to see fights all the time, but they like the tough old school hockey. Is there a point where if, like, let's say the fans are voting at the gate, that the league takes a look at this and what is the end game here? What could possibly happen from the SJHL's point of view?
I don't see that in the short term. What I can tell you, the rule has reduced the number of one-dimensional players. You don't see the players that are there only to fight anymore.
Yeah, that's a true positive for sure.
What have we seen? 1 fight at home this year? Has it been that bad?
Yeah.
Like you go back to the first early years of this team, and it's 5-2 in the 3rd period.
Yeah.
The scorekeeper, he just puts his hat off, takes his hat off, picks up his pen because he knows he's going to be ready.
Cue the circus music.
And do we really want to see that as well? Again, I don't want to. I'm not against the fights, but I think what we're coming to now is guys that want to fight are fighting, and not so much the stage stuff.
Yeah.
Again, though, we would like to see that number of games, because 4 fights in a year is.
Yeah.
Back in the '80s, that was a good game.
I recall actually in I think the Ice Wolves' second or 3rd year under Darren Schwartz, there was 3 consecutive home games where there was at least 8 fights in a game, and that's where the SJHL has been. And I'm not sure if that too many fans want to go back to that.
No.
But they wonder if the pendulum has swung maybe too far the other way, where there's the issue that Graham brought up is like now you're thinking about, well, if I get too many, then guys start goading me into fights later on in the season because they know I'm up against my limit,
Yeah, I don't believe those numbers are published, though. I don't believe there was talk at the league level that they weren't going to make those numbers available to coaches so that they know who was. Now they do their homework.
Yeah.
They can figure it out, but those weren't going to be part of the stats package or so. But you know, it's a good point. I guess you look at it two ways, and again, I want to reiterate. I like the fights, but you look at it two ways. If they have to think about whether they should be fighting at that point, maybe that's not really a fight. You know.
Yeah. Keith,
There'll have to be a real good reason for them to fight. Obviously, if maybe somebody took out one of their better players.
Yeah.
And then something where it's a real necessity to fight. I think it is a bit low. Maybe just go. It probably would have been better the way they kept it, a certain number of games, and then if you get more, you get just progressively more suspensions. You know, so. But I guess it's a concussion thing with the NHL players that have died in the last while related to fighting, and it's just this onto the bandwagon. We've got to eliminate it in everything, in every sport. So they're just onto that crusade, I guess, as well.
Yeah. Anyway, we could be talking about that ad nauseum, but thanks very much for that. I do want to end the show though talking about the Ice Wolves all-time team, the Fans' Choice ballot that went on in the summer, and the fans actually chose. They had I guess 2 all-star teams if you want. You know, the 2 sets of forwards, forward lines, 2 defense pairings, 2 goalies that they could choose. Ended up with 13 players. You guys have had a chance to take a look at, I guess, the winners, if you will. But I think we've all got people that we thought maybe could have been on the team that weren't, like kind of honorable mentions. You know, you wish you could vote more guys in. Is there any guys that stand out for you that, I wish that guy was on, somehow made that all-time team? I'll start with you there, Keith.
Well, I thought Jeff Marshall, he was probably one of my all-time favorite Ice Wolves. A very good player. I know we had a few bad years when he was here. At least 2 out of, I think he was here 3. At least 2 of those years we had we had tough years, and he just carried our team. You know, he just provided a lot of spark, and he was up in the league standings. And I thought he should have been on there.
Yeah. Roger, anybody for you that stands out?
Oh, there's a few.
Yeah.
Ryan Corrigal. You know, like maybe the nicest set of hands this team's ever seen. Didn't play on the high-powered teams we've seen the last couple of years. Didn't get the big points, but you know, maybe the slickest passer on this team's ever seen. Jamie Camillo was a guy that came here as a 20-year-old back in the Larry Wintoniak days that ate up a ton of ice time and you know, really was an instrumental part of those teams almost making the playoffs. Kirby Markowski was a big fan favorite in town.
Scott Marchenko, too.
Scott Marchenko,
great player, aggressive, physical.
Yeah, and you know the package that they got from Notre Dame for that guy, you know, was in his 4th year was like an elite player, and I thought for sure he would make the team.
Yeah. I think excuse me, Rod. I think one of the things is that in a voting like this, people just tend to remember last few years, and especially if they're the younger voters, they're not going to remember a lot of these older players. So unless somebody really stuck out since the Ice Wolves have been here, you probably wouldn't even know about them. So.
And you can't minimize what that group that made the Fans' Choice did.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of them were big parts of the team. 2 teams won back to back.
Exactly.
You know, Steven Spencer is another name that comes up that maybe one of the toughest guys that ever played here. And
Chad Hill was a fan
Chad
favorite.
Hill.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking of another one as we were talking, but it slipped my mind. But
Garrett Saparlo was a solid.
Maybe they should have had a full team. Next time, make it a full team.
Yeah.
That kind of defeats the purpose. It was fun to do it, no matter.
Yeah, it really was.
But yeah, there's a number of guys. Nobody on that list that we have deserves not to be on there.
Exactly.
So how do you
On defense, you got Kirk Moore that didn't make it. Matt Weisensell was a great defenseman last year. Byron Sorensen the last 2 years. Yeah. The list goes on and on. We could again talk ad nauseum on this one, but anyway, guys, thanks very much for being on the program. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right, if you're just joining us, this is Ice Wolves Insider. We've been joined by fans Roger Schooley and Keith Cratchmer with From the Stands. We'll be right back to wrap things up. Well, that's all the time we have for this evening's edition of Ice Wolves Insider. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. We'll be back next Thursday. And as well, the Ice Wolves have a couple of home games coming up next Friday and Saturday. So we'll see you at the Mel.